The shift begins. The maternity ward was usually a place filled with joy, cries of newborns, tired yet content mothers, and proud families eager to share in the miracle of life. But as Linda, an experienced nurse with over a decade of service, walked through the halls, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that crept over her. She'd been working in this hospital for years, but today felt different. Linda's shift started like any other, checking in on mothers who had recently given birth, ensuring they were comfortable and receiving the care they needed. Her role as a nurse was not just about medical checks. It was about empathy, about making sure that these women felt supported in one of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. As she moved down the hall, Linda caught sight of Anna's name on the chart outside room 312. Anna, a young mother in her mid-20s, had given birth the day before. Linda hadn't seen her since the delivery and was curious to check on her. Stepping into the room, Linda's instincts as both a nurse and a woman immediately kicked in. Anna sat on the hospital bed, her back to the door, staring blankly out of the window. The blinds were open just enough for light to creep in, casting a pale glow over the room. The baby slept soundly in the bassinet beside her, but Anna's posture didn't reflect the joy most mothers expressed in the presence of their newborns. She looked frozen, lost in thought, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if bracing against something. Linda cleared her throat softly, her usual warm smile faltering for a moment. "Good morning, Anna. How are you and the baby doing today?" she asked, keeping her voice gentle. Anna didn't immediately respond. After a long pause, she turned slightly, her eyes meeting Linda's for a split second before drifting back toward the window. "We're fine," she mumbled, barely audible. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, and carried a heaviness Linda couldn't ignore. Linda approached cautiously, her eyes scanning Anna's form. She had learned over the years that there were many things new mothers carried with them into the maternity ward. Fears, anxieties, doubts. But what she saw in Anna was something different, something deeper. Anna's body language spoke volumes. Her hunched shoulders, the way her hands trembled as they clutched the edges of her hospital gown. It all screamed distress. Trying to maintain a calm demeanor, Linda moved closer to check Anna's vitals. "I just need to take a quick look at your incision site, okay?" she asked. Anna nodded, her movements mechanical, as though she were barely present in the moment. As Linda gently lifted Anna's hospital gown, she gasped inwardly at what she saw. Faint bruises, purple and greenish in color, marked Anna's arms and side, just beneath the skin. They weren't fresh, but they were unmistakable. Linda's heart sank, and her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Domestic violence. The training sessions Linda had attended suddenly came flooding back. They had been filled with sobering statistics about how common domestic abuse could be, especially during pregnancy and the postpartum period. It was a hidden epidemic, one that many nurses have been trained to recognize, but often felt helpless to address. For a moment, Linda froze. She had seen bruises before, on children, on elderly patients, but it was always hard. Every time, it was like a punch to the gut. And here was Anna, this young mother, already dealing with the challenges of new motherhood, silently carrying the weight of an abusive relationship. But Linda knew she couldn't push too hard. Victims of domestic violence were often too scared to speak up, too ashamed or too afraid of the consequences. If she misstepped now, Anna could shut down completely, and the chance to help her might slip away. Linda took a deep breath and decided to tread carefully. Sitting down on the edge of Anna's bed, she kept her voice soft. "Anna, I want you to know that this is a safe place. Whatever you're going through, we're here to help. You don't have to be alone." Anna flinched slightly, her grip tightening on her gown. Her eyes flickered with something. Fear, maybe desperation. But she still didn't say anything. Linda's heart ached for her. She had seen this too many times before. Women caught in abusive relationships, too afraid to speak out, even when they desperately wanted to. Anna's silence spoke louder than words, but Linda needed her to know that she wasn't just another patient in the system. She was a person who mattered, and her safety was paramount. After what felt like an eternity, Anna finally spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Ida, I can't talk about it," she said, her voice breaking. Linda nodded, respecting Anna's boundaries. She couldn't force Anna to open up, but she could be there, ready to act if Anna chose to. "That's okay," Linda said, her tone soothing. "You don't have to say anything now, but if you ever want to, know that I'll be here. And there are people who can help you. You don't have to go through this alone." The silence stretched on as Linda sat by Anna's side. The weight of the situation pressed down on her, but she didn't show it. Her years of experience had taught her that the best way to help someone in Anna's situation was to be patient, to let them come forward in their own time. As Linda finished her checks and stood to leave, her mind was already racing with what she needed to do next. She couldn't just walk away and pretend she hadn't seen the signs. Something was terribly wrong, and it was clear that Anna was in danger. Linda knew she had to act. But how? If Anna wasn't ready to open up, could she still intervene without pushing too hard? Before Linda left the room, she turned back to Anna one last time. "I'll be back to check on you in a bit, okay? And remember, you're not alone." As she stepped out of the room, the weight of the situation hit her full force. She had seen the signs, and she couldn't ignore them. Linda's heart pounded in her chest as she walked toward the nurse's station. Her mind was already formulating a plan. She knew she had to protect Anna and her newborn, but the question remained, how could she help without causing more harm? The next step would require courage, tact, and the ability to navigate a delicate situation that could change everything for Anna. But Linda had never been one to back down from a challenge, especially not when someone's life was at stake. She picked up the phone, her fingers trembling slightly, and dialed a number she had hoped she would never have to use during her shift. The call would set into motion a chain of events that would bring the truth to light. But at what cost? A delicate conversation. Linda hung up the phone, her heart still racing. She hadn't contacted emergency services yet. That step felt too drastic at this moment. But she had alerted the hospital's social worker, someone trained to handle delicate cases like this. Linda hoped that a gentle approach would allow Anna the space and courage to open up. But before the social worker arrived, Linda knew she had to keep a close eye on Anna. She couldn't shake the image of those bruises from her mind. They weren't the type of marks that came from an accidental bump or a fall. No, those bruises told a much darker story, one Linda had seen too often. As she made her rounds, her thoughts kept circling back to Anna. The newborn sleeping beside her, the innocent child who had just entered the world, was now part of this. Linda felt a surge of protectiveness, not just for Anna, but for her baby. She knew from experience how violence in the home could ripple through generations. The stakes were high, and every decision Linda made from here on out could impact 2 lives, not just one. As the minutes ticked by, Linda checked in on her other patients, but her mind was firmly on room 312. Finally, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. With a deep breath, she headed back down the hall toward Anna's room. Before she entered, she paused for a moment, steadying herself. This time, she wasn't just going in as a nurse, but as someone who was determined to make a difference, however small, in Anna's life. When she walked in, Anna hadn't moved. She still sat, staring blankly out the window. The baby stirred slightly in the bassinet, but didn't wake. Linda walked quietly over, pulling up a chair beside Anna's bed. "Hey," Linda said softly, easing herself into the conversation. "I wanted to check in on you again. How are you feeling?" Anna didn't answer right away. Linda could see the tension in her face, the way her body remained rigid, almost as if she was bracing for something. This wasn't just the exhaustion of a new mother. This was fear, plain and simple. After a long pause, Anna finally spoke, her voice low and shaky. "I'm fine." Linda didn't push. Not yet. She knew from her training that victims of abuse often downplay their situation. The shame, the fear of retaliation, and the isolation all created a web of silence that was hard to break. Linda's job now was to create an opening, a small space where Anna could feel safe enough to speak her truth. Anna, Linda began carefully, choosing her words with great care. I know things might feel overwhelming right now. Being a new mother is hard enough. And sometimes there are other things going on that make it even harder. I just want you to know, if there's anything you need to talk about, anything at all, you don't have to go through it alone. Anna's eyes flickered, but she remained silent. Linda continued, her voice soft but steady. I've worked with a lot of new mothers, and I know that not every situation is perfect. Sometimes things happen that make it hard to feel safe or happy. But we're here to help. You and your baby deserve to be safe and cared for, no matter what's going on. For the first time, Anna shifted slightly, her fingers trembling as they gripped the edge of her hospital gown. Her eyes, which had been so distant and cold, now filled with tears. Linda's heart clenched as she watched Anna struggle to hold back the emotion that was clearly threatening to spill over. I can't. Anna's voice broke. I can't tell anyone. Linda leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to be afraid, Anna. No one is here to judge you. We just want to make sure you're okay, that both you and your baby are safe. The tears finally spilled over, and Anna's shoulders shook as she began to cry silently. Linda didn't speak, didn't press. She simply waited, knowing that this was the moment where trust was being built. Anna was on the verge of something important, and Linda couldn't afford to rush her. After what felt like hours, Anna finally spoke again, her voice barely more than a whisper. It's my husband. Linda felt her stomach drop, but she kept her expression neutral. Your husband, she repeated softly. Anna nodded, her hand moving to cover the bruises on her arm. He's been so angry since the baby came. I thought things would get better, but he gets so mad. And when he's mad, he hits me. Linda's chest tightened. She had been right. The bruises, the fear in Anna's eyes. It all made sense now, but hearing Anna say it out loud made it all the more real. This wasn't just a theory. This was happening right now, to the woman sitting in front of her. I'm so sorry, Anna, Linda said, her voice filled with compassion. No one should have to go through that, especially not you. This isn't your fault. Anna shook her head violently, her tears falling faster now. It is my fault. I should be better. I should do more. I know he's stressed. I know he didn't mean to hurt me. It's just hard right now. Linda's heart broke as she listened to Anna's words. This was the devastating cycle of abuse, the victim blaming themselves, trying to rationalize the violence, excusing the inexcusable. Linda had seen it before, but it never got easier to witness. Anna, Linda said gently, none of this is your fault. No matter what's going on, no one has the right to hurt you. You've just had a baby, and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. You deserve to be safe. Anna sobbed quietly, her hand shaking as she wiped at her eyes. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I can't leave him. He said he'd take the baby if I did. Linda felt a surge of anger toward Anna's husband, but she kept it hidden beneath her calm exterior. You don't have to make any decisions right now, she said gently. But there are people who can help you, people who can make sure you and your baby are safe. No one will take your child from you, Anna. We can help you, but only if you want it. Anna's sobs quieted as she listened, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope in her tear-filled eyes. Linda could see that Anna was trapped, both emotionally and physically, in a situation she didn't know how to escape. But that glimmer of hope was enough for Linda to know that Anna wanted a way out. She just didn't know how to take the first step. Linda reached out and gently placed her hand on Anna's. I can call someone for you, someone who can help. We won't do anything you don't want. But just know, you don't have to go through this alone." Anna looked at Linda, her face filled with both fear and gratitude. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," Linda replied softly. "But you're not alone. We'll figure this out together." As Linda left the room to meet with the social worker, her mind was already spinning with possibilities. She knew that the next steps would be difficult, and that Anna's journey was far from over. But for the first time, there was a flicker of hope that Anna could break free from the cycle of abuse and build a new life for herself and her child. The decision to act. As Linda walked back to the nurse's station, her thoughts were heavy. She had done her part. She had opened a door for Anna, one that might lead her to safety. But that wasn't enough. Anna's situation required more than kind words and reassurance. It needed action, a plan that could keep her and her baby out of harm's way. The social worker, Naomi, was already waiting for Linda when she returned. Naomi was a petite woman with a calm demeanor that belied the gravity of her role in the hospital. Her short hair framed a face that had seen many stories like Anna's before, but the kindness in her eyes never waned. She greeted Linda with a soft smile. "You mentioned a patient in distress," Naomi asked, her voice professional but laced with concern. Linda nodded, quickly summarizing what she had observed. She told Naomi about Anna's bruises, her fear, and the fact that her husband was the one responsible. She also mentioned Anna's reluctance to leave, her fear of losing her baby. As Linda spoke, Naomi's expression grew more serious. "Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon," Naomi said with a sigh. "Postpartum abuse is something we see more than we'd like to admit. The vulnerability of new mothers often makes them targets for their abusers. But it sounds like she's opened up a little, which is a good sign. It means she's thinking about the possibility of change." Linda nodded. "I'm just worried. She's afraid he'll take the baby if she tries to leave. She's terrified, Naomi." "That's not unusual either," Naomi said softly. "Abusers often use children as leverage, threatening to take them away or hurt them if the victim tries to escape. It's part of the control they exert. But we can help her. There are legal protections in place, and we have resources to ensure her safety. The hardest part will be getting her to accept that help." Linda's stomach knotted at the thought of what might happen if Anna refused assistance. She had seen it before. Women who had come so close to breaking free, only to return to their abusers out of fear or a misguided sense of loyalty. But Linda couldn't dwell on that now. She had to focus on what she could do in this moment. "Do you think we should involve the police?" Linda asked cautiously. It was a sensitive subject. Calling law enforcement could escalate the situation, especially if Anna wasn't ready to confront her husband. Naomi considered this for a moment, her brows furrowing. "Not yet. We need to be careful. If we call the police now and Anna isn't ready to leave, it could make things worse for her. Her husband could retaliate once she's home. What we need to do is offer her a safe place to go, somewhere her husband can't reach her. But we can't force her to make that decision. It has to come from her." Linda felt a pang of frustration. She understood the importance of letting Anna make her own choices, but the thought of sending her back home to a dangerous situation felt unbearable. She knew Anna's time in the hospital was limited. Sooner or later, she would be discharged, and then what? Would she go back to the life that had left her bruised and broken? "I'll go talk to her," Naomi said after a brief silence. "We'll take it one step at a time. I'll explain her options and see if she's willing to take any of them." Linda watched as Naomi made her way down the hall toward Anna's room. She felt a strange mix of hope and dread. She knew Naomi was skilled at handling these situations, but the outcome was never guaranteed. All Linda could do now was wait. In room 312, Anna hadn't moved much since Linda left. She still sat on the bed, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, staring out of the window. Her baby slept peacefully beside her, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface of his mother's quiet demeanor. When Naomi knocked softly on the door and entered, Anna turned slightly, her expression guarded. Naomi introduced herself and explained that she was a social worker with the hospital, there to offer support and guidance. "I'm not here to make any decisions for you, Anna," Naomi began gently. "But Linda mentioned that you're going through something difficult, and I want you to know that we have resources to help you if you want them." Anna's eyes flicked to Naomi's face, searching for something, perhaps a sign of judgment, or maybe just reassurance that this woman truly meant what she said. "I don't know what to do," Anna whispered. Her voice was small, as though speaking too loudly might bring the reality of her situation crashing down around her. "I can't leave him," he said. "He said he'd take the baby if I did. He'd find a way." Naomi nodded, her face full of empathy. "It's a terrifying thing to face, I know. But you don't have to do it alone. There are shelters that can take you and your baby in, places where you'll be safe. There are also legal protections available, like restraining orders, that can prevent him from coming near you." Anna shook her head, her voice trembling. "He's powerful. He knows people. I don't know if any of that will work." Naomi understood Anna's fear. Abusers often had ways of making their victims feel trapped, powerless. They manipulated their circumstances to make it seem like there was no way out. But Naomi also knew that there were real, tangible solutions, ways to protect Anna, even from someone who seemed untouchable. "I'm not going to lie to you, Anna," Naomi said carefully. "Leaving an abusive relationship is never easy. It's one of the hardest things a person can do. But I promise you, there are people who will stand by your side. There are laws designed to protect you, and we can help you navigate them. You don't have to face this alone." For a moment, the room fell into silence. The only sound was the soft breathing of the baby in the bassinet, oblivious to the tension surrounding him. Naomi waited, giving Anna the space she needed to process everything. She could see the conflict in Anna's eyes, the fear of staying clashing with the fear of leaving. "I'm scared," Anna finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." Naomi reached out, gently placing her hand over Anna's. "You are stronger than you think, Anna. You've already survived so much. And now you have your baby to think about. You both deserve a life free from fear." Tears welled up in Anna's eyes, but this time they weren't tears of hopelessness. They were tears of conflict, of someone standing on the edge of a life-changing decision. Naomi had seen this look before, the moment when a victim realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. "I don't know if I can leave right now," Anna said, her voice shaky. "But I want to think about it." Naomi smiled gently. "That's okay. You don't have to make any decisions right this second. But I'm going to leave you with some information, places you can call, shelters that can help. And if you decide you're ready, we'll be here to support you." She handed Anna a small folder with contact numbers and addresses for local shelters and domestic violence support groups. Naomi knew it might take time, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, but just planting the seed of hope was enough for now. As Naomi stood to leave, she placed a hand on Anna's shoulder. "Remember, you're not alone in this. Whenever you're ready, we'll be here." Anna nodded, clutching the folder to her chest as if it were a lifeline. Naomi gave her a final reassuring smile before exiting the room. Linda was waiting outside, her nerves taut as a wire. When Naomi stepped out, Linda immediately searched her face for any sign of how the conversation had gone. "She's not ready yet," Naomi said quietly, "but she's thinking about it. That's a good start. We've given her the information she needs, and now we have to let her make the next move." Linda nodded, though her heart was heavy. She knew that thinking about leaving was only the first step in a long and dangerous journey, but it was a step. For now, that had to be enough. As Naomi walked away, Linda took a deep breath and returned to her duties. She would keep checking in on Anna, keep watching for signs that she was ready, and when that moment came, Linda would be there to help her take the next step toward freedom. But as the day wore on, Linda couldn't shake the sense of unease. Something about Anna's situation felt urgent, like a ticking clock. There wasn't much time, and Linda just hoped that when the time came, Anna would have the strength to walk away. A silent threat. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the maternity ward as Linda continued her rounds. Despite the steady hum of hospital life, her mind lingered on Anna. The conversation Naomi had with her had been a small victory, but it hadn't been a resolution. There was still a mountain of fear, uncertainty, and danger looming over Anna's life. Linda couldn't help but worry about what would happen when Anna's husband returned to the hospital. Would Anna hide her bruises again? Would she shrink back into herself, silenced by the weight of her husband's presence? These questions gnawed at Linda as she prepared for what would come next. It was close to visiting hours, and Anna's husband was due to arrive. The thought of him walking through those hospital doors, sitting by his wife's side as if nothing was wrong, filled Linda with a deep sense of unease. She had met men like him before, men who smiled for the world but behind closed doors were capable of unspeakable cruelty. It was always the same, a charming facade masking the darkness beneath. Linda decided to stop by Anna's room one more time before visiting hours began. She needed to check in, to make sure Anna knew she wasn't alone, even if she couldn't speak freely in front of her husband. When Linda entered the room, she found Anna pacing back and forth, her arms wrapped tightly around her body. The baby, who had been resting peacefully earlier, now cried softly in the bassinet, sensing the tension in the air. "Hey, Anna," Linda said, trying to sound calm, though her heart raced. "I just wanted to see how you're doing." Anna didn't stop pacing. Her eyes darted toward the door, and Linda could see the fear etched into her features. "He's coming," Anna whispered, her voice trembling. "He'll be here soon." Linda felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "I know," she said softly, stepping closer to Anna. "But remember, you're safe here. We're all here for you." Anna shook her head violently, her hands trembling as she clutched her hospital gown. "You don't know him," she said, her voice thick with fear. "You don't know what he's capable of." Linda's stomach twisted at the thought of what Anna had endured. She wanted to reach out, to hold Anna's hand and promise her that everything would be okay. But she knew better than to make promises she couldn't keep. Right now, Anna was still in danger. Her husband was still a looming threat, and no matter how much support the hospital staff provided, they couldn't protect her from him once she left this place. Linda took a deep breath, keeping her voice steady. "Anna, I want you to know that if you need anything, anything at all, you can press the call button, and we'll come right away. If he tries to hurt you while he's here, you don't have to wait. We'll be there." Anna's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, though her expression remained clouded with doubt. "What if he finds out I talked to you?" she whispered. "What if he finds out I'm thinking of leaving?" Linda felt the weight of Anna's fear like a physical burden pressing down on her chest. She knew Anna was right to be scared. Abusers often retaliated when they felt their control slipping, and Linda had no way of knowing how Anna's husband would react if he suspected that his wife was planning to escape. "We'll be careful," Linda assured her. "We won't do anything to make him suspicious. You don't have to say a word while he's here if you don't want to. But remember, you're not alone in this." Anna wiped her tears away with the back of her hand, nodding again, though the fear in her eyes remained. Linda's heart ached for her, but she knew there was little more she could do at this moment. Anna's husband would be arriving soon, and all Linda could do now was stay vigilant. As she left the room, Linda made a mental note to keep an eye on Anna's room during visiting hours. She wanted to be close by, ready to step in if anything went wrong. The hospital's automatic doors hissed open, and Linda's eyes instinctively darted toward them. A tall man in his mid-30s walked in, dressed in a crisp suit. His polished appearance contrasted sharply with the picture Linda had painted of him in her mind. He looked like any other father coming to visit his newborn child, calm, collected, even proud. But Linda knew better. She knew that appearances could be deceiving. The man walked with purpose, his eyes scanning the hall until they locked on room 312. Without a moment's hesitation, he strode down the corridor toward Anna's room. Linda's heart pounded as she discreetly watched him go. This was the man who had hurt Anna, the man whose hands had left bruises on her body, whose words had left scars on her soul. Linda quickly moved to the nurse's station, positioning herself within earshot of Anna's room. She couldn't interfere unless something happened, but she could at least be nearby, ready to act if Anna needed her. As the man entered the room, Linda saw the tension in Anna's posture. She had been sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for him, and the moment he walked in, her body seemed to shrink, her arms folding tightly around herself. "Hello, sweetheart," the man said, his voice smooth and warm. It was the voice of a man who could charm anyone, a man who knew how to play the part of a loving husband in public. Anna mumbled a reply, her voice so soft Linda couldn't hear the words. But she could see the way Anna's shoulders tensed, the way her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, as if she couldn't bear to meet his gaze. The baby stirred in the bassinet, and the man walked over, leaning down to stroke the newborn's cheek. "Look at him," he said, his voice still filled with that unnerving calm. "Our beautiful boy." Anna nodded, but Linda could see the fear in her eyes as her husband's hand lingered just a little too long on the baby's face. It was a silent threat, one that spoke volumes without saying a word. He didn't need to hit her in that moment to remind her of his power. The threat was always there, hovering just beneath the surface. Linda's grip tightened on the edge of the counter as she watched, her instincts screaming at her to do something. But she knew she couldn't intervene yet, not unless Anna asked for help, not unless there was a clear sign of danger. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. Linda's eyes never left the door to Anna's room, and her ears were finely tuned for any sounds of distress. But there was nothing. No raised voices, no sounds of struggle, just the quiet murmur of a man maintaining control through silence and subtlety. Eventually, the man emerged from the room, his face calm and composed. He smiled at a passing nurse as if he hadn't just spent the last hour reasserting his dominance over his wife. Linda's stomach churned at the sight. As he walked past the nurse's station, Linda noticed something chilling. He caught her eye, just for a brief moment, and in that moment, she saw it, the flash of recognition, of knowing. It was as if he knew she had been watching, knew that she was the one who had spoken to Anna. His smile didn't falter, but there was something cold in his eyes, a silent warning that sent a shiver down Linda's spine. As soon as he was gone, Linda rushed back to Anna's room. She found Anna sitting on the edge of the bed, her body trembling with the weight of what had just happened. "Are you okay?" Linda asked softly, sitting beside her. Anna didn't answer right away. She sat there, staring down at her hands, her entire body shaking with silent sobs. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "He knows." Linda felt her heart drop. "What do you mean?" "He knows I've been talking to you," Anna said, her voice thick with fear. He didn't say it, but I could see it in his eyes. "He knows. And now he's going to make me pay." Linda's blood ran cold. She had seen the look in his eyes too, the look of a man who knew he was losing control and was prepared to do whatever it took to get it back. "Anna," Linda said, her voice trembling with urgency, "you can't go home with him. Not now. It's not safe." Anna shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't have a choice. He'll take the baby if I don't." Linda stood up, her mind racing. She had to act quickly. This wasn't just a matter of helping Anna anymore. This was about saving her life. "I'm calling 911, Linda said firmly. "You and your baby are coming with me." Anna's eyes widened with fear, but there was also something else. Relief. She had been waiting for someone to make the decision for her, someone to take the reins and pull her out of the darkness. Linda didn't hesitate. She grabbed the phone, dialing the number that would set everything in motion. This was it, the moment that could change everything for Anna and her child. The turning point. Linda's fingers trembled as she pressed the digits for 911. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, the gravity of the situation finally hitting her full force. This was the moment she had dreaded and anticipated since the bruises on Anna's arms had first caught her eye. The moment where she had to make the call, literally and figuratively, to change the course of Anna's life. As the phone rang, Linda glanced at Anna, who sat on the edge of the bed, cradling her baby in her arms. Anna's face was a mask of terror and disbelief, her body rigid with fear. Linda's gut twisted, knowing how scared Anna was, scared for herself, for her child, and for what might come next. But there was no other way. The window of time was shrinking, and with her husband now suspicious, the danger was more real than ever. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice crackled on the other end of the line, bringing Linda back to the present. This is Nurse Linda Mackenzie at St. Mary's Hospital. I need to report a case of domestic violence, and I'm requesting immediate assistance, Linda said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The victim and her newborn child are in immediate danger. The dispatcher asked a few routine questions, and Linda provided all the necessary information, her eyes never leaving Anna. Anna remained silent, holding her baby tightly as though afraid to loosen her grip, afraid that if she did, she might fall apart entirely. We're sending officers right away, the dispatcher assured her. They'll be there in a few minutes. Stay with the patient and make sure she doesn't leave. Linda thanked the dispatcher, hung up, and turned her full attention back to Anna. The police are on their way, she said gently, sitting beside her. They're going to help you. We're going to make sure you and your baby are safe. But Anna didn't respond right away. She just sat there, staring down at the tiny face of her newborn son. The baby cooed softly, oblivious to the storm brewing around him, his innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil in his mother's eyes. I don't know if I can do this, Anna whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know if I'm strong enough to leave him. Linda's heart ached at the vulnerability in Anna's words. She had heard this same sentiment from so many victims before, women who felt trapped, powerless, and unsure of their ability to escape. The abuse had worn them down, leaving them questioning their own strength and self-worth. But Linda knew that Anna, like all those women, was stronger than she realized. You're stronger than you think, Anna, Linda said softly. You've been strong enough to survive this long. And now you're doing the bravest thing you could possibly do. You're taking that first step toward a new life for you and your baby. Anna shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. But what if he finds me? What if he? He won't, Linda interrupted firmly. We're going to make sure of that. The police will help you get to a safe place, somewhere he can't reach you. There are shelters and programs that can protect you and your baby. You don't have to do this alone. Anna's tears spilled over, and she buried her face in her hands, her body trembling with sobs. Linda sat beside her, her hand gently rubbing Anna's back, offering what little comfort she could. This was the hardest part, the moment when the weight of the decision hit. Anna was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to take the plunge into the unknown, and the fear of what lay on the other side was overwhelming. The minutes seemed to stretch into hours as they waited for the police to arrive. Every sound in the hallway made Linda's heart skip a beat. What if Anna's husband came back before the officers arrived? What if he sensed what was happening and tried to stop them? Linda's mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panicking wouldn't help anyone right now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, there was a knock on the door. Linda's heart leaped into her throat, but when she opened the door, relief washed over her. Two uniformed police officers stood in the hallway, their faces serious but calm. "Are you Nurse Mackenzie?" one of them asked. Linda nodded. "Yes, thank you for coming. She's in here." The officers stepped into the room, their presence commanding but not intimidating. Anna looked up, her eyes wide with fear as the reality of the situation hit her once again. "Mrs. Richards," the female officer said gently, stepping forward, "we're here to help you. We understand this is a very difficult situation, but we want to make sure you and your baby are safe. Can you come with us?" Anna looked from the officer to Linda, her face etched with uncertainty. "Where are you taking me?" "There's a shelter nearby that specializes in helping women in situations like yours," the officer explained. "They have secure housing, legal support, and resources for you and your baby. Your husband won't be able to find you there." Anna hesitated, her gaze dropping to her baby, who had finally fallen asleep in her arms. "But what if he comes after me? What if he tries to take my baby?" Linda knelt beside Anna, her hand resting on her shoulder. "He won't. We're going to make sure of that. The shelter will help you get a restraining order, and they have legal teams who can help protect you and your rights. You're not alone, Anna." The officers waited patiently, giving Anna the space she needed to process everything. Linda could see the conflict waging inside her, the fear of leaving versus the fear of staying. It was a battle that every victim of abuse faced at some point, and Linda knew how difficult it was to choose the unknown over the familiar, even when the familiar was dangerous. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Anna nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll go." The officers exchanged a glance, their faces softening with relief. "Good," the female officer said. "We'll take you there now. Do you need help packing your things?" Anna shook her head, her hands still trembling. "No, I don't have much. Just the baby's things." Linda quickly gathered up the baby's belongings, diapers, blankets, and a small bag of essentials that Anna had brought with her to the hospital. She handed the bag to one of the officers, who carried it for her. Anna stood slowly, her legs shaky as if the weight of the decision had physically drained her. Linda stayed close, her hand on Anna's arm, steadying her as they prepared to leave the room. But just as they were about to step into the hallway, Anna froze. "What if he's out there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The male officer stepped forward, his expression firm but kind. "We'll make sure you get out safely. I'll escort you to the car myself, and we'll take you straight to the shelter. He won't have a chance to follow you." Linda could feel Anna's fear radiating from her like a palpable force, but she also saw the determination in her eyes. This was it, the moment Anna had been so afraid of, but also the moment that would set her free. As they walked down the hallway, Linda stayed by Anna's side, her heart pounding in her chest. Every step felt heavy, like they were walking through thick, oppressive air. The hospital, normally a place of healing, suddenly felt like a battlefield, with unseen threats lurking around every corner. When they finally reached the exit, the bright afternoon sun hit them, a stark contrast to the tension inside the hospital. The officers quickly guided Anna to the waiting police car, helping her into the back seat with her baby safely in her arms. Linda stood at the entrance, watching as the officers prepared to drive Anna to safety. She felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Anna was leaving. She was finally escaping the nightmare she had been living. But there was still so much uncertainty ahead. Would Anna be safe at the shelter? Would her husband try to track her down? Would Anna have the strength to stay away, even when the fear and loneliness crept in? As the police car pulled away, Linda felt a tear slide down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, reminding herself that this was a victory, a small but significant victory in a battle that was far from over. But for now, Anna and her baby were safe, and that was enough. Linda stood in the doorway for a long time, watching until the car disappeared from view. She knew this wasn't the end of Anna's story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. But Linda also knew that Anna was stronger than she realized. She had taken the hardest step, the first step toward freedom. And that made all the difference. As Linda turned to go back inside, she whispered a silent prayer for Anna, hoping that wherever her journey led, she would find the peace and safety she deserved. The road to freedom. The following days at the hospital passed in a strange blur for Linda. After Anna's departure, she threw herself into her work, tending to other mothers and newborns, doing her best to stay focused on the tasks at hand. But in the back of her mind, She couldn't stop thinking about Anna and the uncertainty that still hung over her situation. Linda had seen women like Anna before, women who had found the courage to leave, but still faced an uphill battle to reclaim their lives. She knew that leaving was only the first step. What followed was often an exhausting process of rebuilding trust, healing from trauma, and navigating a legal system that didn't always work in favor of victims. The fear, the doubt, the pull of returning to what was familiar, all of that would weigh heavily on Anna in the days to come. But despite these worries, Linda couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Anna had taken the hardest step. She had faced her fear and made the decision to leave, and that alone was a monumental achievement. It was a sign of her inner strength, a strength that Linda believed would carry her through whatever came next. A week after Anna left the hospital, Linda received a call from Naomi, the social worker. The minute Linda heard her voice on the line, her heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for an update, hoping that Anna and her baby had made it to the shelter safely and were settling in. "I wanted to give you an update on Anna," Naomi said, her voice warm but tempered with the weight of the situation. "She and the baby are safe at the shelter. They've been there for a week now, and she's started working with a counselor." Linda exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Relief washed over her, knowing that Anna had made it through the initial days of uncertainty. "That's great to hear. How's she doing?" "She's struggling, as expected," Naomi admitted. "But she's also showing incredible resilience. She's still scared, of course, worried about her husband trying to find her. But she's made it clear that she wants to move forward. She's looking into legal options, and we're helping her file for a restraining order." Linda felt a sense of pride swell in her chest. Anna's journey was just beginning, but she was taking steps in the right direction, steps toward a life free from fear and violence. "That's wonderful," Linda said softly. "I knew she had it in her. She's stronger than she realizes." Naomi paused, and Linda could hear the slight hesitation in her voice before she spoke again. "She's asked about you, you know. She said that your support was one of the main reasons she found the courage to leave. She wanted me to thank you." Linda's heart squeezed at the thought. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, she thought, just her job. But knowing that her words and actions had made a difference in Anna's life was humbling in a way that was hard to describe. "Tell her I'm proud of her," Linda said, her voice thick with emotion. "And if she ever needs anything, if she needs to talk, or if there's anything I can do, let her know I'm here." "I will," Naomi promised. "And thank you, Linda. You've made a real difference." After hanging up, Linda sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past week. It wasn't often that she got to see the outcome of cases like Anna's. Too many times, the women she tried to help either returned to their abusers or disappeared from the system entirely. But this felt different. Anna had made it out. She had found the strength to walk away, and now she was beginning the long process of healing. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Anna sat on the edge of the bed in the small room she had been given. The walls were plain and unadorned, the furniture simple, but to Anna, it felt like a sanctuary. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to look over her shoulder. She didn't have to brace herself for her husband's angry words or his controlling presence. Her baby slept soundly in the crib beside her, a soft blanket wrapped around his tiny body. Anna watched him, her heart swelling with love and protectiveness. It was for him that she had made the decision to leave. It was his future she had been thinking of when she had packed her things and climbed into the police car. The thought of him growing up in an environment filled with fear and violence had been unbearable. But now, here they were, safe, at least for the moment. Anna sighed and glanced at the small stack of papers on the bedside table. Legal documents, shelter guidelines, and information about the restraining order she was filing. It was overwhelming at times, all the paperwork and decisions she had to make. But she knew it was necessary. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to turn back now. Her counselor, Sarah, had been a lifeline over the past week. Sarah was a calm, understanding woman who had worked with countless survivors of domestic violence. She had a way of making Anna feel heard without judgment, and for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like her voice mattered. In their sessions, they talked about everything: her relationship with her husband, the fear she had lived with for years, and the hope she had for the future. It was hard, opening up about the things she had kept hidden for so long. But each time she talked about it, each time she spoke the truth out loud, the weight on her chest grew a little lighter. One afternoon, after a particularly emotional session, Sarah gave Anna a gentle smile and said, "You're doing incredible work, Anna. I know it feels like a lot right now, but you're making progress. You've already done the hardest part, you left. Now, it's about building a new life." A new life. The word stuck with Anna, resonating deep in her soul. A new life. For so long, she had been trapped in a cycle of fear and control, convinced that there was no way out. But now, as she sat in the safety of the shelter, her baby sleeping peacefully beside her, she realized that the life she had always dreamed of might actually be within reach. Back at the hospital, Linda continued with her work, but something had shifted in her. Anna's case had reminded her of why she had chosen this profession in the first place. It wasn't just about checking vital signs or administering medication. It was about being there for people in their darkest moments, offering them hope when they couldn't see it for themselves. One afternoon, as she was finishing up her shift, Linda received a letter at the nurse's station. It was addressed to her, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. Curious, she opened it, and her breath caught in her throat as she read the words. "Dear Linda, I don't know if you'll ever fully understand how much your kindness meant to me. In a moment when I felt completely lost, you gave me the courage to make a choice I had been too afraid to make for so long. Because of you, I found the strength to leave. Because of you, my baby and I are safe. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm on the right path now. Thank you for being there for me when I needed it most. I'll never forget it. With gratitude, Anna." Linda sat in silence, the letter trembling in her hands. Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of relief, of joy, and of pride. She had done it. She had made a difference. In that moment, Linda knew that no matter how difficult her job might get, no matter how many heartbreaking cases she encountered, it was all worth it for moments like this. Moments where someone's life had been changed because of something as simple as a few kind words, a helping hand, and the courage to act when it mattered most. Anna's journey was far from over, but it had begun, and Linda would carry that with her for the rest of her life, knowing that in some small way she had been a part of that story. A story of hope, strength, and the road to freedom.